Afternoon, guys. I'm Keith, and this is Panther Creek Bushcraft. Today, I'd like to talk about the Bowdrill. Now, the Bowdrill is a primitive fire method, and you have the components are a spindle, a hearthboard, a bow, and a handhold. Now, these materials need to be gathered. They need to be as dry as possible. They need to be off the ground. If they're laying on the ground, they can take on moisture from the ground. So anything that is as close to vertical as possible is what you want to use. With that being said, we've got a perfect example right here. It's not straight up and down, but it is off the ground. This is a piece of poplar, tulip poplar. And I don't know if you can see it, but it has a split running down through it right here, and that's a good sign that it is good and dry. So I only need about a foot section of this. I think I'll cut it out from right here. Now I'll go ahead and get this down, and I'll cut it to length, and then we'll start looking for our other pieces and parts. Actually, it looks like there's going to be a piece up there at the top that I'm going to be able to use. So I'll cut a piece out right here. I think right here is what I want. Okay, so here's the piece we ended up with. And what we're going to end up doing is splitting out a piece that's going to be about as thick as our thumb. We'll split this off, and we'll end up with a flat board, hopefully. Now, while I'm here with this piece, it has this bark hanging off of it. And I'm going to go ahead and harvest this bark while I'm here, because I can use this for my bird's nest when I go to blow it into flame. There we go, that should be plenty. Now let's go. Take a look at this other end here. Now for the spindle, I want a piece that is as straight as possible and also about as big around as my thumb. And I think I can get a piece right here. It's got a few knots in it, but I think I can make it work. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now, the main thing is you should be able to take your thumb and push it and make a dent pretty easily. If it will do that, then it's the right hardness. That's very important. It doesn't matter really what kind of wood you use, as long as it passes the hardness test. Again, you just take your thumb and push on it, and it should make a dent very easily. Guys, I'm going to have to apologize. I forgot to hit record while I was doing this. This is going to be our bow. This is a piece of cherry. I've simply tied a piece of cordage onto one end, tied it to the other end, and I've got a little slack in it. For this, You want something that's about arm's length minimum, a little bit bigger than your thumb if you can get it. You want it to be fairly rigid. You don't want a lot of spring in it. Let's see. Also, this has a little bit of a bow to it, and that's what I like. Some people like a straight bow. You'll just have to experiment and figure out what you like for yourself. So we have the bow, and now this is going to be our handhold. It's also a piece of cherry. I'm going to move the camera so you can see what I'm doing, and we'll split a piece of this off and make a flat spot. Hang on, I'll be right back. All right. So to turn this into a handhold, I'm just going to split a flat spot in this. Now for this handhold, you want to use something that's a hardwood. Like I said, this is cherry. And if you can, you really want it to be a piece of green wood. They just seem to work a lot better. They have less friction. You don't want any friction on the top when you're doing this. And I'll explain that more as we get going. Now the next thing I want to do to this is carve a little divot right here. And this is where the top of the spindle is going to go. And I want to make it deep enough that the spindle won't pop out, because they tend to pop out at the worst time. All right, that will work. Now we're going to split our hearth board. And again, I want it to be about thumb thick when I'm finished. That didn't split off very clean. It's okay, I can finish it off from this end. Okay, that's good for that side. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now I just want to set it on the ground and make sure it's going to set flat, and that's going to be really good. Now, let's see, I'm going to carve a flat spot on one edge. That. Okay, and now our spindle. We'll start by taking these knots off. One more. Okay. Now, on one end, I'm going to carve a blunt point. While I'm doing this, I want to make sure that I stay in the center of the spindle. I don't want the point to be off to one side. Now Okay, so that's what we've ended up with. On the other end, I want a long taper. Again, I want to keep that in the center of the spindle. Okay. That's what we've ended up with. Now, a little talk about the handholds. By far, the best thing to use would be a stone like this. You can see I've chipped a little hole there, and the spindle sets in that just like that. It helps you to hold it. Another thing is you can use a piece of antler. I have a hole right there, and that works really well. But if you're doing this for survival, you're probably not going to have that. And this is what you're going to have to use. This is much, much harder. So now our next step, I'm going to take the spindle and put it on here and mark where it needs to go. Excuse me. And I'm going to make a little divot right there as well, just to keep it from walking around on me. So now our next step is to do the burn-in. And basically what that does is it makes the two pieces here made up to where you get the most friction. So we'll get started on that, and then we'll cut a notch. Now, let's talk a little about form. I've got this knee back in line with this heel, and I've got my hand locked into my shin. That way I'm not doing like this. I can hold it steady. And when I work my bow, I'm using the whole string. That way I get the longest stroke possible. Okay. Okay, so now that is the burn-in. Now what I'm going to do is cut out a pie-shaped piece right here. And we'll come all the way to the center of that burn-in and all the way down. And now when I work my bow drill, it's going to make dust, and that dust is going to fill that notch up. So let's get started on that. It doesn't need to be great big. That's what I'm going to end up with. I'm going to do this very carefully. Normally, I would put my notch on this side. It's a lot easier for me to carve that way. but I want the notch facing away from me so that I can give you a good view of what's going on when I'm doing this. Again, I'm being very careful here not to cut myself, because this is not how I normally do it. And this notch is very important, so I want to do the best job I can carving this out. I'm going to do a neat job and not leave any splinters. There we go. Now we've got that done. The next thing we need to do is take a piece of bark or a leaf or something like that to use as a dust catch, or a welcome mat, some people call it. I'll put this right here, and that is what the dust is going to land on, so that I can pick it up and put it in my bird's nest. Let's go ahead and get this made so that we'll be ready when the time comes. A lot more than I need. I think I'm going to thin it out some. Okay. Get my fluffy stuff over here to the middle. Now let me just say that if I was actually going to build a fire, I would make this bird's nest quite a bit bigger than this. But for demonstration purposes, this will work just fine. Now, before we jump on this ember, I want to resharpen this point. And I'm going to take this point and I'm going to rub it on either side of my nose, behind my ears, any place where my skin might be a little oily, and that will act as a lubricant. Now also I'm going to take a green leaf and stick in this hole and work that back and forth to lubricate that hole. The less friction you have on your handhold, the better. That is why it's so much better to use a bone or a rock for this than a piece of wood. Okay. When I'm doing this, I want to make sure that I keep my bow as flat as possible. I don't want to get in a big hurry. I just want to be consistent. Now, the main thing about doing this is the pressure that I'm pushing down on the spindle. Too much pressure and it makes the powder too coarse, and it just won't light. Not enough pressure, and it doesn't get hot enough. Now my notch is starting to fill up. Once it's completely full, I'm going to speed up, and the extra heat that makes will cause an ember to grow. I want to gently lift my hearthboard off of here. Now, at this point, you really don't want to get in a big hurry. Right now, the ember is very, very small and very, very fragile. So we catch our breath and let the ember grow. And as it grows, this dust pile will start to stick together a little bit, and it'll be easier to handle or safer to handle. Now also, I want to bring the bird's nest here and get it close before I start to handle my dust pile. Okay. Put it in there gently. Get all my dust in there. And gently fold it up a little. And then blow gently. Can't hardly blow on it at that angle. There we go. Now as soon as it lights, I want to turn this over upside down. That way the flames will go up through the tinder bundle. Okay, man, it's hot. It's in the 90s today, and it's about 90% humidity. It is hot here in the woods. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what we just did here. Okay, this handhold, that's what we had. That is what happened to the long pointed end. It wore down that much. Now what happens as it burns in there, it will eventually, the sides here will eventually start hitting here. We call that, we say it's shouldered out. And when it does that, it means you have a ton of friction up here. And the more friction you have on your handhold, the slower your spindle turns. And if you can't get it turning fast enough, it will not make an ember. Let's see, let's talk about the dust pile. When you're making that dust pile, if it's a light brown, that means you don't have enough heat. Usually that means you need to press just slightly harder on your spindle. You know, talking about the down pressure. If the dust pile looks like little miniature Tootsie Rolls, little round rolls, that means you have way too much pressure. You need to ease up a little bit. If it's a very fine black powder, that means you have burned it up and there's no fuel there. It's already burned up. It's useless. It wouldn't light even if you held a lighter to it. When you're making that dust pile, it should be about the texture of like coffee grounds, something like that. That is very important. Let's see, when you're doing that, you can hear a squeak sometimes, and that's okay. That's just part of friction. But if it squeaks a lot and it doesn't quit, that means that you have, in your set, you have a lot of resin or a lot of moisture. If you're new to this, you probably just need to get a new set. You're not going to be able to do that. With practice and experience, you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to work through it. Now, as for beginners, make a set, and the best way to do it is make your set and set it on your dash in your car or truck, and just let the sun shine on it there, and that will dry it out pretty quick. In a few days it'll be dry enough. You should be able to knock a fire out fairly quick. Your handhold, like I said, doing this is tough, doing it this way. If you don't have a deer antler, if you don't have a rock or some kind of bone you can use a shot glass. Now, I would recommend wrapping some duct tape around your shot glass so that if it does bust, you won't cut yourself. But when you're first beginning, you want to set yourself up for success. Make it as easy as possible so that you can learn your form. Once you've got the form down, then you can start experimenting with different types of woods and different moisture contents. There are ways you can take wet wood or even green wood and make a Bowdrill fire if you do it right. But that's advanced stuff. Don't worry about that right now. Now, another thing about practice, make a set and be able to set yourself up for success. Keep your Bowdrill set someplace where it will stay dry. Sun and wind are good for it. They help keep it dry. Now, as soon as you have consistent success doing it that way, then you're ready to move on. Make a new set and make an ember every day for a year. When you run through your set, like with this hearth board, there's the thickness I have left right there. See, I can get one, maybe two more embers out of this one hole. Okay, when this hole is used up, I'll move over to here, and I can get 3 embers there, and move over to here, and then here, and then you'll be able to go to the other side and go in between those original holes. When that's used up, make another set and start again. Do it every day for a year, and keep your Bowdrill set, I don't want to say in the dry, but like outside on a covered porch, so that it can take on moisture sometimes, and that makes you work for it. And that's how you get good. You'll do it when it's hot, you'll do it when it's cold, when it's windy, when it's raining. That's how you get good at it. Now, maybe you don't want to get good at it. Maybe you just want to be able to do one every now and then. In that case, make your set, throw it on your dash, and just do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I guess that's really all I have to say about the Bowdrill, other than I would never count on a Bowdrill set as my only means of fire. I would always carry a lighter, a ferro rod, something like that. I wouldn't even mess with matches. You know, lighter, ferro rod, that's good enough. The Bowdrills can be very finicky. Oh, another thing, sometimes you'll make a set and it just won't work. I don't care how good you are, it just won't work. There is something in the wood that keeps it from working. I don't know. Like when you get good at it and you get a set and you just cannot get an ember and you try 2 or 3 times, chuck it, make another set. There's obviously something with that piece of wood that it's just not working. Now, as far as the types of wood you can use, here in the eastern woodlands, poplar and cottonwood are probably the best options. Also willow, sassafras. I have heard that sumac, pawpaw, and mulberry work pretty well, but I don't have any experience with those. I have made Bowdrill sets out of oak, and oak is really hard. But if you find it in the right stage of rot to where you can make that dent with your thumb, then it's fine. That is the main thing. You want to be able to make that dent with your thumbnail. That is the key. Now some types of woods just won't work. Pine, I wouldn't even mess with pine. It is just too resiny. Cedar, I have used cedar, and cedar works sometimes. Cedar, the eastern cedar that we have around here is very knotty, and it has a lot of resin in it sometimes as well. So it's kind of iffy. But you know, just experiment with it. Have fun with it. I guess that's all I have to say today. Thanks for watching.